Welcome to Hotspot with me, John Pennington and Matt Carter. Time for another County Championship and Royal London One Day Cup review. We're going to start with the Royal London Cup semi-finals, then move on to the County Championship. But first of all, morning Matt, how are you doing?
Good morning, I'm very well, thank you. You?
Very well indeed, very well. Let's look back on these Royal London One Day Cup semi-finals, shall we? First of all, we had Warwickshire beating Kent, and then Durham quite comfortably beating Nottinghamshire. Just give us your sort of overview of those two games for us.
Yeah, I mean, the first one, Warwickshire beat Kent, it was pretty much a formality, to be honest. Warwickshire are such a one-day side at the moment. I mean, they're really brimming with confidence, and if Kent were ever going to win this game, they needed Warwickshire to have an off day and for themselves to have a very exceptional day. Sam Billings came in late on in the innings, was left with too much to do for Kent. I think they saved him until about number 8, obviously trying to save him till the very end, but he had his hands tied a little bit, obviously having no partners, and I think they only set Warwickshire 215, which they coasted to pretty much. So they're into the final, and they'll play Durham, who, after we wondered if they had enough batting power in that lineup, and they posted 350 against Notts in a remarkable fashion. Ben Stokes scored 160 odd. It was a tremendous innings, actually. I mean, he was pretty much littering the boundary, and then Nottinghamshire, James Taylor got another 100 for them, but it wasn't enough. It was always going to be a stern test, that 350, especially without Alex Hales, which did raise some contention, and particularly amongst the Notts faithful, why Hales and Gurney weren't available when Stokes was. I know Stokes isn't in the 2020 squad, but you would have thought that, I mean, Gurney hasn't really even played that much in the one-day series, that they would have made him available. So that was a little bit frustrating for them, and a frustrating season, really, for Nottinghamshire. It's all been close but no cigar for them. But Durham, I think, are on a remarkable one-day run. I think they've won 5 or 6 on the bounce now, and they've got real momentum behind them, and it looks like it should be an excellent final, that.
Yeah, I mean, it does set up an intriguing final. I suppose the point with Ben Stokes being available, I mean, James Taylor was available, and he is in the 2020 squad. I guess that would be the argument from the ECB. Would you sort of go along with that, or should they all just get on there and play?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, all they've got to play is a 2020 international. I mean, it isn't the most taxing of games, and I think it does discredit the tournament a little bit. I mean, Notts have got to the semi-finals really off the back of, I think Hales had scored 3 centuries for them. Gurney is probably their best limited overs bowler, and it just left them with their hands tied a little bit, unfortunately. And I can understand Nottinghamshire's frustration. I mean, obviously Taylor was available, and as we said, he scored a century, but frustrating for Notts, really.
Yeah, trying to get all these fixtures in before the end of the season, it gets harder and harder every year, doesn't it? Okay, let's move on to the LV County Championship, and this week's fixtures, the return of the Championship. Are we now looking at Yorkshire's title unless something goes horrendously wrong for them?
Yeah, I think it's Yorkshire's to lose now. It was a critical week. I mean, Yorkshire and Notts have been trading blows. I think they've been share the top spot between them for the last 7 rounds. Something had to give, and you thought with Yorkshire playing Lancashire, Roses clash, Lancashire needing to win in their relegation fight. They won last time out, but Yorkshire absolutely pounded them, to be honest. I mean, they dismissed Lancashire cheaply and then put up a mammoth total, which is the formula that Yorkshire stuck to throughout the season. I mean, they've never really looked like losing. The only game they lost was Middlesex chased over 450. Chris Rogers scored, I think, an unbeaten double 100. So that just shows you what a tough side they are to beat. Adam Lyth with another 100, a double 100, this time 250. And Adil Rashid's come into form for them just at the right time. They've now won 3 on the bounce. Prior to that, they hadn't won back-to-back games. So they've peaked at the right time. They are the most formidable side. And if Notts are going to pip them now, they're going to have to beat Yorkshire this week and then pick up more points in their remaining fixture compared to Yorkshire's remaining fixture. But I think even beating Yorkshire is going to be a mountain for Nottinghamshire. I think, especially in what for Notts has been a pretty disastrous week. I mean, their championship aspirations have all been blown to pieces. And then obviously that one-day loss at Chesley Street, both those fixtures at Chesley Street, I think they'll be fed up of heading up to Durham now. But certainly, I think Yorkshire's to lose, and they're just such a strong side, Yorkshire. There really aren't any holes. I think it's that batting lineup with 12 times out of 14 they've posted a score of in excess of 400, which is just a phenomenal achievement, really. And they have just been such a solid side, and Notts perhaps with a couple more holes than Yorkshire has been the difference.
Yeah, when you sort of pull that stat out, it really does make it very clear. And they'll obviously miss Andrew Gale for the rest of the season. He's been suspended, but I'm with you. I can't see that making an awful lot of difference. So we know now that Northamptonshire have been relegated, but who do you think will join them? There's maybe 2 or 3 teams still sort of battling away there?
Yeah, again, it was a pivotal week at the bottom. Those fixtures that Yorkshire Notts had sort of were intertwined with the relegation fight, and that was a huge win for Durham. I mean, their form had gone sideways. They'd lost 2 on the bounce. They'd only lost 1 all season before that. The batsmen weren't scoring runs. They were without Graham Onions, and obviously Ben Stokes had been recalled by England, so they were without him. So it showed a tremendous amount of character for Durham. Paul Collingwood led the fight, as he always does, with a century. It was a brilliant 100, actually. I mean, I think Durham's last 3 wickets added in around 200 runs to really take the game away from Notts. And yeah, I think from here Durham should be fine. They've still got Northampton to play. They play Middlesex this week. If Lancashire are to stop up, they're going to have to beat both Sussex and Middlesex in late September. And the weather, that in itself is a challenge. But they've got a bowling attack that really is down to its bare bones. And unfortunate injuries have meant Kyle Hogg has now retired. Kyle Jarvis hasn't developed into the player we thought he would when they signed him, and Glenn Chappell's shown his age, so it's going to be very tough for them. But it's not inconceivable that they won't stay up. I mean, Middlesex are the ones who look a little bit precarious to me. They haven't won for a long time, but I think they play Somerset and Lancashire and Durham. So if they can get a couple of draws out of those, they should be fine. But unfortunately, it looks like the 2 teams who came up are going to be heading back down.
And that sort of leads us nicely on to Division 2, just to give us an update. It does look like now it will be Worcestershire and Hampshire, doesn't it, again, unless something remarkable happens.
It does, but Worcestershire are just starting to teeter a little bit. I mean, they're virtually there. I mean, this week I don't know what happened to them. I think they had 2 sessions to survive against Derbyshire, and they just imploded in, I think, about 46 overs they were bowled out, and they've only taken 9 points from their last 2 games. Surrey have got to make up 39 points, which is virtually 2 wins, and they've only got 2 wins left. I mean, they do play Worcestershire this week, so that could get it a little bit more nervous for Worcestershire. And then we've got Essex, who probably need to win 2 out of 3, if not 3 out of 3, to pick Worcestershire. But I think Worcestershire, in terms of winning the title, that's looking a little bit challenging for them now. Hampshire have regained their touch. They've won 2 on the bounce and convincingly thumped Leicestershire this week. So I think the title looks like it could be heading to Hampshire, and Worcestershire should be joining them, but it's getting a little bit nervous. I say that with Derbyshire lost, but Surrey also have to play Derbyshire, who are in a run of 3 wins on the spin. They haven't done that for about 8 years, so that won't be easy for Surrey. But yeah, as you say, Worcestershire and Hampshire look like going up, but not quite there yet.
And just looking ahead to this week's fixtures, I think you've already picked out most of the key fixtures there. ECB yesterday announced that pretty much all of their centrally contracted players will play quite a large part in the remaining fixtures. I know that they're resting the seam bowlers for the final round of county championship games because they want to give them 6 weeks rest. How much of an effect do you think that might have? Which teams might benefit most from having their England stars back in the final weeks of the season?
Well, I mean, we just mentioned Worcestershire, and I think to have Moeen Ali back for them is a massive boost because he is an experienced player. He is their best player. It is huge for them, and I think that will probably be enough to get them over the line. Yorkshire, without Andrew Gale, are going to have balance and root back. I mean, that batting lineup is formidable as it is. I know they won't have Kane Williamson for the closing week, so it's pretty big actually for Yorkshire to be without Gale and Williamson and to have these 2 guys back. So it's massive for them, and Notts will have their players back, but unfortunately probably after the horse has bolted, which is a shame for them. And Lancashire could probably do with having Anderson for the entire remainder of the season if they are to stop up, but certainly it'll add a little bit extra to the closing rounds of the Championship.
Yeah, no, add something extra to the one-day final as well. So Ian Bell if he's fit, Chris Wokes in action, Ben Stokes as well. So finally, Matt, then we've talked about all sorts of key games coming up this week. Which would be the one that you'd sort of say, yeah, that's the game I want to be at this week because that's where the action's going to be?
Yeah, I think it has to be that Nottinghamshire and Yorkshire game. It's do or die for Notts. As we say, it's not inconceivable that they can't still win the title, but they have to win that game, and they need to win it pretty comprehensively. So they've got through everything at Yorkshire this week, so that is most certainly the one to be at. I
think you're spot on there, Matt. That could be where, as you say, the title is effectively won or lost. So, well, that brings us to the end of this County Cricket Hotspot. Thanks very much to you, Matt, for your time this morning. Pleasure as always.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And thank you very much for watching us here on Cricket World TV.